the day my cows crashed a wedding. They say retirement is for gardening, bird watching, and enjoying a peaceful cup of coffee while the world slows down. But the morning Deborah Langley stormed into my backyard with a clipboard and a glare that could curdle milk, I realized retirement was actually a long, drawn-out war with petty tyrants in yoga pants. I was sitting on my porch swing, savoring the steam off my coffee, when I saw her marching toward me, flanked by two of her HOA lieutenants like she was leading a neighborhood military operation. No good morning, just, Henry, we'll need that rose trellis down by Saturday. It's obstructing the archway. I blinked. Then she dropped the real bomb. We'll be hosting my niece's wedding here next weekend. I've already sent the invites. Now, I'm 67, not senile, and definitely not spineless. I stared at her, trying to figure out if this was a poorly delivered joke or a mental breakdown unraveling in real time. Deborah, I said slowly, this is my backyard. She looked genuinely puzzled, as if I had forgotten where I lived. Yes, Henry, but you have the best view in the neighborhood. We all agreed. It's the perfect venue. Who's we? Did the squirrels get a vote? She ignored the sarcasm. It's for love, Henry. Don't be selfish. Ah, yes. The Homeowners Association, what I call the hysterical overlords army. I've lived in this neighborhood for 34 years and seen 3 HOA presidents come and go. Deborah, however, had turned suburban leadership into an art form of tyranny. She once fined me $50 for having an unapproved wind chime. Said it created a chaotic auditory environment. And now she was claiming my backyard like it was Omaha Beach. I chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd it felt like a bad sitcom. No, I said. One word. Flat. Final. But Deborah isn't built to hear the word no. Her eye twitched like a slot machine stuck on tilt. Henry, HOA rules state that common areas. This isn't a common area, Deborah. It's my private property. Bought and paid for with 3 decades of hard work and a pension. You want a venue? Rent a hall. Her nostrils flared like she was preparing to charge. This attitude, she snapped, is why no one comes to your potlucks. That's because I serve food that wasn't cooked in passive aggression, I replied. That afternoon, an official-looking letter appeared on my door, on HOA letterhead in Deborah's handwriting. A community concern report. Apparently, I was exhibiting antisocial behavior and resistance to unity. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my soup spoon. Refusing to surrender your backyard for a wedding you weren't invited to now counted as a psychological disorder. The whispers started that evening. Neighbors peeked through curtains. The woman who always borrowed my rake wouldn't make eye contact. A kid on a bike swerved around my driveway like I was contagious. So I did what any rational man would do. I walked to my barn and sat with my cows, Hazel and Clover. They didn't care about HOA bylaws. They just wanted hay and ear scratches. I vented to them like they were old poker buddies. Hazel sneezed on my boot. Felt like solidarity. The next day, Deborah returned, this time with reinforcements. For women, folding chairs in hand and ice matcha in tow, toward my lawn like they were scouting a wedding venue. One pointed to my flower beds and said, "We can put the photo booth here." I stormed out in my robe and slippers. Unless you're planting flowers or milking cows, you're trespassing. Deborah's voice turned sweet as arsenic. Henry, please don't make this harder than it has to be. You don't have legal rights. You have a misunderstanding of property law and a dangerously inflated ego. They left, muttering about how I used to be nicer. That night, the HOA newsletter featured me on the front page. Elderly neighbor blocks community wedding in act of malice, with a photoshopped image of me frowning next to a tombstone. Now, it wasn't just about the backyard. It was about standing up to bullies who used rules as weapons and kindness as leverage. Deborah had fined people for lawn gnomes, tried to ban Halloween decorations, and even attempted to evict a vet over a beige mailbox. I let a lot slide, but not this. I called an emergency HOA meeting. Any 3 residents could request one. My neighbor Martha Connors, a retired lawyer with a glare that could melt concrete, agreed to co-host. Eli Dawson, the local conspiracy theorist, was all in. We printed flyers. When Deborah saw them, she sneered like a Disney villain. "What's next, Henry? Gonna sue me over some cows?" And then it hit me. Maybe I will. That night, Operation Muham was born. I laid a trail of apples and hay from the barn to the spot Deborah had marked for the altar. I trained Hazel and Clover like show ponies. Each time they completed the trail, they got treats and praise. The cows were ready. Neighbors picked sides. Some believed Deborah's sob story. Her niece's father had cancer, and this was his last chance to walk her down the aisle. Except he was seen jogging around the block, looking quite spry. Others, mostly those she had fined in the past, rallied behind me. One woman left a pie on my porch. Another dropped a cowbell in my mailbox. Deborah, unwilling to lose power, scheduled a public HOA meeting. She passed out flyers and offered cupcakes. The turnout was huge. Martha and I arrived early, armed with documents and a slideshow of Deborah's worst infractions. One included a fine for a bird bath, encouraging wildlife loitering. Deborah opened with a speech about unity and compassion, then looked at me and said, "Some people hoard their resources like dragons." I replied, "Better a dragon than a wedding planner with a god complex." The room laughed. Martha took the floor and dismantled Deborah's claims with legal precision. She even pulled out the Constitution. "Nowhere in here," she declared, "does it say you can annex someone's backyard for a Pinterest-themed hostage situation." Deborah produced a letter signed by 10 neighbors. 2 were deceased. One was a dog named Muffin, and one appeared to be written in crayon. "Muffin's very politically active," I whispered to Martha. Deborah stormed out, but the wedding was still on. Sunday. 2 days before, I sat with my grandkids. My 12-year-old granddaughter, Emily, asked, "Grandpa, why is everyone mad at you?" I explained everything. She didn't laugh, just said, "That's kind of sad. Weddings are supposed to make people happy." That stuck with me. Maybe the cows didn't need to destroy the wedding, just disrupt it enough to make a point. Saturday was the rehearsal. From my window, I watched folding chairs, tiki torches, and tablecloths invade my lawn. Deborah barked orders. Martha showed up with a sandwich and whispered, "Ready for tomorrow?" I told her I was adjusting the plan. Less chaos, more message. Sunday morning arrived, calm and quiet. I drank my coffee, watched the guests arrive, and waited. Deborah was in full command mode. No one touched the rose trellis. Someone deal with that cow smell. That smell was intentional. Clover had left a gift near the altar. At noon, the ceremony began. Sophie, her niece, looked miserable, like someone enduring, not celebrating. When the officiant got to "Speak now or forever hold your peace," a deep moo echoed across the lawn. Hazel entered first, calm and regal. Clover followed, faster and hungrier. Deborah shrieked, "Get them out." They followed the scent of community unity, I said. Guests laughed. Someone took a photo. Hazel knocked over a tray of sandwiches. Clover chewed on fake roses. Deborah tripped over a speaker cord and fell into folding chairs. Marvin shouted from his roof, "This is better than cable." But then I saw Sophie, crying quietly, alone in the chaos. I approached her. "You okay?" "I didn't want any of this," she whispered. "Karen made it all about her." I nodded. "Let's fix it." Martha and I, with help from a few neighbors, guided the cows back to the barn. Then I opened the barn doors. It's clean, rustic, smells only slightly of hay. Let's host the vows here. Sophie's eyes lit up. "Are you serious?" "Your wedding. Your way." The barn lit up with joy. Guests sat on hay bales under string lights. Sophie and her groom, Jeremy, exchanged vows under an arch I built years ago with my late wife. There was no cake, no dee, just laughter, dancing, pie, and a warmth you couldn't fake. Later, Sophie sat beside me. "You gave me back my voice," she said. I had no words, just Hazel nudging my hand and Clover licking someone's plate. That night, I got an email. Deborah had been relieved of her HOA duties pending a vote. Someone had uploaded a video of her screaming at cows. It had gone semi-viral on the neighborhood page. A few days later, she showed up on my porch. No clipboard, no entourage. "Henry," she said, "I owe you an apology." She admitted she'd gotten carried away. Try to control something that wasn't hers. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, but I want to change. Change starts with listening, I told her. As she walked away, I called out, HOA's voting next week. You running again? She shook her head. No, let someone else take the reins. Good, I smiled. Because Hazel's considering it. Her approval ratings through the roof. She laughed. For real this time. I sat back on my porch, coffee in hand. The yard was quiet again. No chairs, no banners. Just peace. They tried to take my backyard, so I let my cows crash the wedding. But in the end, we all got something better. A little respect, a little joy, and a lot of moo.